We all know Lamar Jackson slid way too far in the 2018 NFL draft. The Ravens scooped him up at number 32, and a legendary NFL coach finally admitted his mistake. One the Ravens made as well. We talk about that. NFL legends roasting the decision, Ravens draft rumors heating up, and so much more coming up next on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire. We are here with you today on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here today on this Monday, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day as well. We're free and available on all podcasting platforms. So if you prefer to watch us in video form on YouTube, you can hit the like and subscribe button. If you prefer to listen to us in audio form, you can follow along and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We're the same show, both audio and video, so you're not missing out on any content, either which way you decide to watch or listen. We're a 5-day-a-week Ravens podcast, so every Monday through Friday, we have you covered with that daily Ravens coverage. Plus, we sometimes have bonus episodes on the weekends. We go live after every Ravens game, after every piece of Ravens big news. So if you want that daily Ravens coverage, be sure to keep it locked in here on Locked On Ravens. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay tuned for the Armada Player of the Week later in the show. Draft less than 2 weeks away, coming up on almost 1 week away, which again, you get to this point where it feels like the draft is so far away, but then it feels so close. I feel like we're kind of in that zone right now. We're going to get into a mock draft Monday in the final part of the show. It's actually our second to last mock draft Monday. We're going to do a trade down scenario. We'll talk about some draft rumors sizzling, particularly around the kicker position. The Ravens held a workout for a kicker. We'll talk about that. But in the first part of the show, what made rounds over the weekend was Bill Belichick. He has a book that's coming out in May. A reporter received an advance copy of the book, and Bill Belichick, who has been singing Lamar Jackson's praises forever, by the way, we've talked about it on the show, he admitted a massive Lamar Jackson mistake that he made, and one the Ravens made as well. We'll get into what he had to say right now. Legends also talked about it, players, former players. We'll get into all that as well. But Bill Belichick, in his book, admitted that passing Lamar Jackson up in the 2018 draft was a mistake. He admits the Patriots should have gotten in on that and taken Lamar in 2018. And for context, the Patriots passed on Lamar twice, 2 times. They had the 31st pick. I know that's the one because that was the one right before Lamar, so everybody talks about that pick. It was Sony Michel. But the Patriots also had the 23rd pick in the draft, and they took Isaiah Wynn, the offensive lineman out of Georgia. So they had 2 opportunities to take Lamar, and they passed up on him twice. Now, look, a lot of teams passed up on Lamar. We know that. And we know that Lamar probably should have gone earlier. There were a lot of spots, and, if people just want to take a trip down memory lane with me quickly here, like there were a lot of spots in this draft where I thought Lamar could have gone. The Saints traded up to 14. That was my first inkling of, hey, all these quarterbacks are off the board. Obviously, Baker goes 1, Darnold goes 3, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen. Lamar was the last first-round quarterback, and so the Saints, they did need a quarterback at the time for their future, and they trade up. I'm like, all right, this is going to be Lamar. Marcus Davenport was the pick there. There were a lot of rumblings that potentially the Patriots could take Lamar. There were rumors that maybe Jacksonville could take Lamar. There were a lot of teams that could have taken Lamar Jackson, but instead they passed on him for whatever the reasons may be, and the Ravens end up getting a steal with Lamar. We know that they were very interested in Lamar. The Hayden Hurst pick, the Ravens made the same mistake the Patriots did. They also passed on Lamar Jackson because, again, there was no guarantee that Lamar was going to make it to 32. Maybe they had received intel and they felt confident he was going to get there, but they wanted Hayden Hurst over Lamar with that pick. That is the reality of what happened there. If they wanted Lamar over Hayden Hurst, they would have taken Lamar over Hayden Hurst. So even the Ravens made that mistake, and then they made the trade with Philly to get back in at 32 and make the selection. I think that year, a lot of people were wondering if the Giants could have taken Lamar with the second pick in the second round had Lamar fallen out of the first round. I think that was probably the most likely landing spot had he not gone. But you look at the situation now, and it's like yeah, back in hindsight, of course, everybody's going to admit that Lamar, not taking Lamar was a mistake. And actually, on their show, Chad Ochocinco and Shannon Sharpe, NightCap, obviously, they talked about this and they brought it up. And so Ocho said everyone makes mistakes, but Shannon Sharpe was not having any of it. He was not having any of it. He said, quote, if they thought Lamar Jackson was going to be this, they would have taken him number one. It's easy to look back now. And so he talked about how, like, okay, if we're just going to live this way, I'm just going to say, oh, I should have invested in all these companies before they all had a huge explosion and now they're worth all this money. Like, it's not fun to live that way. But yes, it's easy to look back in hindsight and say, oh yeah, hey, reference to Nikola Jokic and how, oh, if everybody knew Nikola Jokic was going to be a 3-time MVP, they would have taken him number one. Like, it's the true thing that Shannon is saying here, where yes, if in hindsight you can look back on it and say, oh yeah, of course I would take Lamar number one, or of course, like, I would take Lamar over this guy that I took when you're a GM or a coach or whatnot. But looking back on it, it's like, yeah, but you didn't believe that at the time. And that's why in the Patriots case, they passed over him twice. Chad Ochocinco or Chad Johnson ended up saying, as a scout and as a GM, how do you look at Lamar at Louisville in college and pass on that based off of what you see? And Shannon responded, and he said, quote, they wanted the man to work out as a wide receiver. You had some prominent GMs that drafted historically great players, Bill Polian, saying they wanted him at wide receiver. And that was the reality of people. I think, what was it? The Chargers wanted him to work out as a wide receiver. You did have the media saying, oh, he's a running back wide receiver. Like, is he really a long-term quarterback? Like, is he someone that provides you with the ability with his arm to be good enough, or is he just going to be more of an athlete? The Ravens believed in him as a quarterback. And you look at this draft class, particularly just the quarterbacks. Baker goes number one. He kind of found his way in Cleveland a little bit, but it was very up and down. He's turned himself into a heck of a player over in Tampa. Sam Darnold had his struggles in New York. He bounced around for a while. He's found his way, obviously, with Minnesota, and now he signed a big deal with Seattle to be with Mike McDonald. You look at Josh Allen. He's a guy that, again, it was not nearly as loud for Josh Allen, but there were questions about, is Josh going to be a guy that's a long-term fit at the quarterback position? And he obviously has turned himself into a heck of a player. He was the MVP last season. He's a great quarterback, one of the best in the league. Josh Rosen was the only real flop in the class. But I think when you argue, I think Lamar has turned out to be the best player in that class. Yes, it is close between Lamar and Josh Allen, but I think that for Lamar, he does have the better resume. 2 MVPs greater than one, and obviously the records, which Josh Allen does have too. I'm not trying to take away from, who Josh is or what Josh has done. You can't go wrong with either guy. But the point is, the criticisms surrounding Lamar were a lot louder than the criticisms surrounding Josh. And so for Lamar, yes, both guys had uphill battles, but Lamar had to face so much in college, so much through the pre-draft process. If you remember, he had to stand up on that podium at the combine and answer questions about, oh, where are you going to work out, Lamar? Have you heard, people are asking you to work out at wide receiver, how do you feel about that? And he had to stand up there for, I can't even remember how long the podium time was, but he defended himself. He had to defend himself against all these media questions, this bombardment. Like, Lamar had proven himself, and Shannon Sharpe, he made the point about Lamar in college. He said, quote, someone threw for all those yards. Y'all make it seem like the man rushed for 3,000 yards. The man passed for 3,000. He rushed for 1,500. He was talking about how he had Heisman seasons and then seasons better than his Heisman seasons. Like, Lamar was an incredible thrower of the football and an incredible runner in college. It was not just like he was running the ball and he was only doing that and the throwing ability wasn't there. Yeah, Lamar coming out of school was raw as a player, like a lot of players are. But that doesn't mean that just because he's raw as a passer, it doesn't mean that he doesn't have the ability to work on that, grow, and become a great quarterback, which he has done each and every single season. So, I mean, yes, in hindsight, you can look back on it and say, oh, well, man, really wish we would have taken Lamar here over Isaiah Wynn and Sony Michel in the Patriots case. And a lot, it's not just a Belichick thing, by the way. I actually commend Belichick for saying it publicly and actually putting it out there. And again, I don't think probably ashamed of the decision not to take it just because, like, man, we could have had this franchise changing quarterback. Because again, for the Patriots, it was, Tom Brady is on his last legs, I guess, in New England at the time. Obviously, he goes to Tampa for a couple years before he retires. Lamar would have been the perfect slot-in option. But you know what? If the Patriots didn't believe in him, it wouldn't have worked because the Ravens believed in Lamar. That's why it worked. The Patriots didn't believe in Lamar, and they just said, oh, well, we need a future quarterback. We don't like these guys. We'll just take them and see what happens. It wouldn't have worked. The reason it worked with Lamar in Baltimore, in Buffalo with Josh, because those teams believed in those quarterbacks. So the conversation is interesting. More stories, and we've actually heard a couple stories this offseason. There was one with the Dolphins, and if I'm remembering correctly, it was that there was a power struggle within the organization. Some of the higher-ups loved Lamar and wanted to take Lamar, but I think they were overruled. I can't remember by who, but another team that was potentially interested in drafting Lamar was the Dolphins. So a lot of different stories with Lamar will continue to come out, but, no surprise to anybody that, and the cherry on top of this is obviously Lamar Jackson looks up to Tom Brady in such a huge way. And so to be his successor in New England, would have been great for Lamar. Now, obviously, I'm very happy it worked out the way it did because Baltimore has Lamar and has their franchise quarterback for hopefully still many years to come after already giving Baltimore so many great memories here. But hey, Lamar faced so much adversity coming out of school and having to face all these questions like I talked about. And the fact that he came out on the other side makes the story so much sweeter. And obviously, to add the cherry on top to that would be to win a Super Bowl. So Ravens have a big task ahead this season, obviously, with the way the year ended last year against the Bills and Josh Allen, who ended up losing to the Chiefs, who everybody in the AFC is trying to beat. But seems like their time might be coming to an end. Ravens draft rumors, though, they are picking up, and they are sizzling. We'll talk about what a lot of people have had to say about who the Ravens could be drafting, what positions the Ravens could be drafting, and some visits the Ravens have been partaking in. The be sure to stay tuned, like coming your way on Locked On Ravens. First, this show is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your pair controller, subscribe, or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. Now, there's endless entertainment with Amazon Fire TV. With 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. I know I have a lot of shows to catch up on, so this is great for me. And, you talk about games, the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K can be a game changer for you. It's a great option even if you want to start playing Xbox, or if you're an experienced gamer, it works incredibly. Head to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required, available on select devices including Fire TV Stick 4K, 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube, 3rd Gen. We're back. Our second segment, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still diving into Ravens content with you as the draft coming up on almost 1 week away. We're going to have a ton of coverage throughout those 3 days. By the way, we'll go live after every single day of the draft, recapping it all, having episodes talking about who the greatest picks of the draft were, whether it's Ravens or other teams. Want to keep up on the other competition as well, who the Ravens will be facing off with. But obviously, having Ravens-centric draft coverage is something that I love to do here on the show. We're going to have that for you all throughout 3 nights of the draft, or 3 days on Locked On Ravens. One of the big things that's really exciting when it comes to the draft, and especially the pre-draft process, is figuring out which players would be great fits for Baltimore, which ones the team should probably steer away from, positions of need. The Ravens have done a great job with, I guess, making them need-free. And I don't want to say they have no needs. That's not what I'm trying to say. It's more so like you don't have that glaring need. We've talked about it a ton here on the show if you've been listening for a while. Some teams have, they absolutely need an offensive tackle, or they cannot leave this draft without taking a first-round defensive lineman. The Ravens don't really have that. Like, yes, they could use a corner. They could use an edge rusher, defensive line, safety, offensive line. Like, they have a lot of needs, but they could go a bunch of different directions, and that, again, has been when the Ravens have operated at their best. One of the interesting parts of Baltimore's situation, though, is the kicker position. Obviously, Justin Tucker was not good for the first 3 quarters of the year and got it together after the bye. And then obviously all of the off-field stuff has hit after the season, and there's still an NFL investigation going on with that. But the Ravens are hosting a private workout with Florida State kicker Ryan Fitzgerald. Now, the Ravens weren't the only team to have a private workout with Fitzgerald. Also, the Patriots and the Commanders did as well. We know the Ravens aren't afraid to take a specialist early. We saw them do it a couple years ago with Jordan Stout in the 4th round. But this does feel like the first year in a really, really long time, I'm talking, a decade plus, that there have been serious questions about the kicker position. Now, again, we don't know if Tucker's going to be on the roster or if he's not going to be on the roster. But regardless, he will probably have competition. And depending on what happens, whether it is Fitzgerald or an undrafted kicker or another kicker they take in the draft, it's not just going to be, it's a camp body. Like, there's going to be a little more weight behind whatever kicker Baltimore brings in. Could be a guy that, just gets put on the practice squad for the year and Tucker stays. Or if he goes, he's going to assume full-time duties. We don't know how that investigation is going to play out. We don't know the decisions the Ravens are going to make. Just going through different scenarios that could happen, we don't know. But John Harbaugh, Eric DeCosta, insiders, Adam Schefter talked about it. They've all made it very clear that it would not be a shock whatsoever if Baltimore takes a kicker on day 3. Harbaugh and DeCosta have been very vocal about, hey, we're looking at kickers. The rumblings have been the Ravens are going to take a kicker. At least that's, what people have been reporting or talking about. So I'm expecting a day 3 kicker. And that has, some people just dismiss it. It's like, oh, whatever. Like, yeah, sure. I'm more of the mindset like this is something big that hasn't happened in a long time. There's a lot of uncertainty surrounding the kicker position. Yeah, there are a lot of other needs Baltimore has to address. We're not going to enter, like in Baltimore, a Robert Aguayo situation in the 2nd round like Tampa did all those years ago. That completely backfired on them and was a monumental waste of draft capital. But there are a couple of kickers in this class that you're probably going to see get taken in probably 5th round minimum. Could even go earlier than that, not sure. But with the Ravens having 11 picks, we don't really know how they're going to maneuver up and down the draft board yet. But, after a while, it's like, well, you already have 2 D linemen, 2 edge guys, 2 corners, 2 safeties, 2 O linemen. Like, where else do you go? Kicker could be one of those options. And plus, I don't expect the Ravens to take 2 of every position there as well. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle it, because they could easily just probably go and find a guy in undrafted free agency. That's how they found Tucker. But if they want to secure the guy that they like, we've seen teams become, it's been a more popular thing with teams who draft specialists in earlier rounds. Again, I'm not talking Aguayo. That was a major outlier. But I think that I'm expecting to see something like that happen. I also think that, we actually had Nick Baumgardner of The Athletic on last week to talk about the Ravens in the draft and who he's kind of viewing for Baltimore. And one of the guys that we talked about was James Pierce, who obviously has a bunch of, off-field stuff with anger and, getting ready and being available and, just character stuff. And Nick Baumgardner ended up talking to us about, hey, you know what? Feels like James Pierce could work in Baltimore because it's a mature organization, a mature roster. Like, sometimes you just need to get a guy around vets. And, we've kind of seen those like locker room problem or, character concerns when it comes to just like attitude that ends up going away when you talk about Baltimore. Not all the time. I'm not saying it's perfect. Deontay Johnson, I think, is a pretty clear example of that, but it's very rare that Baltimore does have the stuff that happened to them last year happen, which I think is why it was so shocking overall. But, for a guy like James Pierce, with the traits and the talent that he has, is that a player that you do want to take the risk on, or would you rather go with a safer selection or just not take a player there at all and just wait till day 2 or day 3? Because I see James Pierce mocked a lot to Baltimore. And we kind of talk about the safety position as well. Malachi Starks is another popular name. I know that Mel Kiper Jr. is all over the Malachi Starks train, and I'm sure mock drafts that will come out today, a lot of them might have Malachi Starks going at 27. So, Baltimore to me has a lot of options to trade up and trade back scenarios. I feel like the more that the draft process goes on, the more people are actually moving away from trade up and actually might say trade back. And we'll get to this in my mock draft Monday I did, where it's our trade back scenario this week, where it actually does make sense if the Ravens make a trade back, if they pull it off the way that I did it. So we'll talk about that coming up in the final part of the show. I still think trading up does make sense if there's a guy that is falling, like a Mike Green, for example. Talk about like a safer option at pass rusher. He would be that guy. I get the small school stuff. I get the production there. But, you know, the more you kind of think about it, the more you kind of hear stuff that's going on. And again, the Ravens do like to keep stuff close to the vest. So it's not like everything's leaking out of the castle here, because that's not the way that they want. It's not what no team wants. Baltimore going to have a couple of intriguing options at 27 if they decide to stay. But either way, with the way this draft class is structured, you're going to get starters, and this is kind of what the industry consensus is. They're going to be able to get starters through day 3 of this draft. It's deep in terms of starters. Now, there's not a ton of star power at the top. Like you have your Abdul Carters, your Travis Hunters, etc. Once you get into even like 5 or 6 or 7, it kind of all becomes one big class where, you know, you have your 2 stars at the top, a couple stars at the top, and then, you know, it's more like a free-flowing, smooth fall instead of that sharp drop-off where it's not very high to begin with, but there are so many starting caliber players, especially on the defensive line, which we all know there's so many defensive linemen in this class. Baltimore's going to have an opportunity with 11 picks. Like, this is a class to have a lot of picks in. So I'm not saying trade and only get 7 picks. I think their sweet spot is 9 to 10. I did that in my trade down scenario. So coming up, we will talk about that, what I did, and then also get into some listener and watcher mock drafts as well. So stay tuned. Plenty coming your way on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by Nissan. The Armada Player of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, we're taking a look at our draft prospects to pick one guy that stands apart, the guy we believe showcased the strength and power needed to push the Ravens forward as we look ahead to next season. This week's Armada and Clear Cut Player of the Week is Xavier Watts, Notre Dame safety, a guy that I think is a great player for Baltimore in a safety class that has guys like Malachi Starks, Nicky Manwari. I think for Xavier Watts, he's someone that the Ravens could either pick at 27 or maybe trade down to get. He's a rugged player. He gets the job done, and I think that for him, he'd be a great pick for Baltimore. He conquers everything when it comes to the football field. And so when it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer. That's exactly what I think Xavier Watts can do here. It's clear that our player of the week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of their outstanding vehicles. Pick Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Locked On Ravens here, final segment, rounding out the show on Monday. Appreciate everybody being here for another week of Baltimore Ravens coverage. On the daily, we're 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And of course, we have some bonus content as well, whether it be bonus episodes, live shows, whatnot. We have a lot coming your way, especially something I'm excited to launch. We have a couple things we're actually launching over the course of the next couple of months. And of course, when the season starts as well. Hit the like and subscribe button, video form, audio form. Subscribe on subtext. You can follow me on social media, Twitter and Instagram. We're getting the Instagram going, right? We got the Twitter. We're building up the Instagram, Chaos Striker 34. So be sure to follow me over on both Twitter and Instagram as well. And also tell a friend and tell a family member, because word of mouth is still very important when spreading the word. We've built up an amazing community. So whether you're an everydayer, first-time listener, somewhere in the middle, thank you for the journey that you have embarked on with me. And thank you for making it a fun journey, because it's been a great time covering the Ravens, and I'm really excited to continue doing it for years and years and years and years to come. So let's talk about Mock Draft Monday. Now, if you listened to the ad I just did over for Nissan, the Armada Clear Cut Player of the Week, I went with Xavier Watts. We did a trade down scenario. And this is what I do on the show. Again, we talk about a lot of different players over the course of a couple months leading up to the draft. I don't want to make it too stale on the show. A couple weeks leading up to the draft, we did our trade up scenario last week, our trade down scenarios this week, and then next week is going to be our final one. That's the final, my key predictions. Like, that'll be the one. But trading down is such an interesting scenario for Baltimore. So Xavier Watts was the Nissan Armada Player of the Week, if you listened a couple minutes ago. So Xavier Watts is the guy that I traded down for in this class. Now, he, to me, is the third best safety in the class behind Malachi Starks and Nick Eamon-Wari. The trade that I ended up making for Xavier Watts, I traded 27, 129, and 176 for 39 and 72 was a deal with the Bears. So the Ravens have 4 top 100 selections. Essentially, you're moving down 12 spots, and then you move up about 50, 60 spots, 57 to be exact spots in the 3rd/4th round there. So, I mean, look, Watts is somebody that I think can bring a lot to the table for Baltimore. He's very versatile, and he's also a guy that I think can make a huge impact with him you can put him in the box. He also had 13 interceptions through 2023 and 2024. He creates turnovers. He's not a huge speed guy, but again, Kyle Hamilton's not a huge speed guy, and he still has the elite ability and instincts. That's exactly what Xavier Watts has. So Hamilton, Watts, Notre Dame. I think this would be a great trade down option for Baltimore. And then at 59, I took Walter Nolan, the defensive lineman from Ole Miss. I don't think he's going to look. Let's be honest. Walter Nolan is not going to fall to 59. He's not going to fall out of the 1st round. But when the mock draft simulator gives it to you, you have to take it. Nolan is dominant. He is one of the many great defensive linemen in this class. And look, there are going to be defensive linemen that fall. This is such a deep defensive line class. 1st rounders will, in last year's class, you're looking at this year's class now. It's like, a 3rd rounder now would go in the 1st round last year. That's just how it's going to be. He's only 21 years old, so there's a lot of development ahead of him, but he had a great year in 2024. The production was there last year. He is a very powerful player. He has explosiveness. I think he would fit in really nicely with Baltimore's group alongside Nandu Madubuike and Travis Jones. Looking at the 3rd round, I ended up taking Jaden Higgins, the wide receiver from Iowa State at 72, who was getting 1st round buzz. He's 6'4", so he's that bigger bodied receiver that the Ravens need. He had 87 catches for 1,183 yards and 9 touchdowns in 2024. Contested catch ability through the roof. He uses his frame to his size. Again, that was a problem with Miles Boykin, who they drafted for his size, but he played a lot smaller than he actually was. He has an elite combination of size, ball skills. His productivity in college was awesome. He's going to be a very valuable receiver at the NFL level, and I think the Ravens would do really well by drafting him. I then took Jordan Burch with number 91 in the 3rd round. Kind of a defensive end/edge hybrid. He's someone that is very explosive. Speed to power is really good, but the run defense isn't really there. So probably not an early down defender early in his career, which is, again, that's fine. Again, you don't need you can afford to have him learn for a year. The only thing is that the Ravens probably do need a more productive edge than that. But, Burst is expected to go in the mid-2nd to early 3rd. So I thought that was value. Anthony Belton at 136. Tackle or guard, I think, for Belton here, that's someone that I really like. Anais Peebles is someone who I've had a lot in my drafts, and I took him at number 183 out of Virginia Tech. Then I took 3 Iowa guys in a row. I didn't really realize this until it was going on. Jay Higgins, linebacker, Jamari Harris, corner, and Luke Lachey, tight end. So I guess, hey, in this scenario, the Ravens say, Tyler Linderbaum, he was great. Let's go draft more Iowa guys. Plus, you actually get the Jaden Higgins and Jay Higgins. So a lot of Iowa because Jaden Higgins is Iowa State too. And then Mac McWilliams, UCF corner in the 7th round. So I didn't love taking corner super late. If I had one thing that I should have done, probably should have taken like a Mello Dotson out of Kansas at corner over Jay Higgins at linebacker. But overall, I was pretty thrilled with how that went, especially getting Walter Nolan in the 2nd round, because again, I have no way that that's actually going to happen. But again, I'm going to take anything the mock draft simulator gives me there. Let's do a listener mock draft before we head out here. Want to first start off with Magic 1988, who says every need address, day 1 starter at guard, Watson round 2, Mondon linebacker depth, Sawyer pushes Isaac and Ajabo, Mills and Hemingway at pass rush at the D-line, Riley for CB and returner depth, Ransaw is a versatile piece for the secondary, Smith is a weapon, Vincent swing tackle. So Tyler Booker, 27, Alabama, That's the first round pick. Xavier Watts at 59. We talked about him. Smile Marlon Jr., Georgia linebacker at 107. Jack Sawyer, edge from Ohio State at 126. Quincy Riley, corner from Louisville at 129. Riley Mills, defensive tackle from Notre Dame at 136. Rashod Smith, running back from SMU at 176. Tonka Hemingway, South Carolina DT at 183. Caleb Bransall, corner from Tulane at 203. Carson Vincent, Alabama A&M OT at 210. And Colin Oliver, linebacker from Oklahoma State at 243. People are hating on Tyler Booker. I'll tell you, I think he's going to be good. He's not the perfect scheme fit. He doesn't have the athleticism, I think, required to fully maximize his potential in Baltimore's system, but he's going to be a 10 to 12-year great guard. I just don't know if the fit is right. I like him, but a lot of people don't for Baltimore. Xavier Watts, we talked about, I like that pick. Jack Sawyer at 126, I'd be ecstatic with that pick. Really solid stuff here overall. You get your depth in the middle rounds, late rounds here, so I like that. Tonka Hemingway is a really underrated player for me as well, so I like this one a lot for Magic Fan. 1988. Let's do one more. Why not? Let's do one more. Celts here has one that says James Pierce Jr., edge from Tennessee at 27. Maxwell Harrison, corner from Kentucky at 59. Omar Norman Lott, DT from Tennessee at 91. Jackson Slater, guard from Sacramento State at 129. RJ Mickens, safety from Clemson at 136. Sal Frazier, corner from UTSA at 176. Jay Higgins, linebacker from Iowa at 183. Colin Pierce, Rutgers, offensive tackle at 203. Luke Lachey, tight end from Iowa at 210. Elijah Roberts, DT from SMU at 212. And Colin Oliver, linebacker from Oklahoma State at 243. Again, I think if he lands in the right situation, he's going to be an incredible player. It's just a matter of getting him. The traits are already there. The football skills are already there. It's just he has to land in the right spot. I think Baltimore could be that for him. I like the Harrison pick. Omar Norman Lott is another one of these great defensive linemen. Jackson Slater is one of my favorite middle round interior offensive linemen. I like that pick a lot as well. And Luke Lachey, I'm telling you, I think that will be Baltimore's pick at tight end. I have no information that tells me that, but I have a feeling. It feels like a Ravens pick. So shout out to Celts for that one. Appreciate everybody for tuning in today. That's all I have for you on Locked On Ravens. Coming up tomorrow, of course, we'll be back here talking more Ravens football, more Ravens content as we inch closer and closer to the 2025 draft. So on the way out, hit the like and subscribe button in video form. Follow along and subscribe in audio form as well. And I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.